Good morning, everybody. It's so awesome to have you back. Welcome to STEM Lockdown Digital School. We are doing grade 7 language today. I'm so glad to see some familiar faces and some familiar names. It's so cool. Welcome to our super class. Okay, I am Sheena Cooney, for those of you that don't know, and I'll be your teacher. These are my handles that you can share your work with us or follow us. And there's my email if you want to send any work-related content. Okay, here we go. Right, so today we are going to use adverbs more efficiently and correctly. Yes, remember, there are different kinds of adverbs. Manner, time, frequency, probability, duration, degree, and phrases. Very similar to adjectives, no. However, there is a difference. Okay, so now this is the place where we are going to start. Aren't you excited? Awesome. Okay, now a word that describes or modifies a verb. An adjective and other verbs. So now you have a adverb, but yes, you know it describes a verb because it's got the word verb in it. So that's like easy peasy. Okay, I know that. But now they say it also describes an adjective, and an adverb can describe another adverb. So now we got to look more carefully at what we're doing. All right, so we tend to ask ourselves when we look at the different types and we learn how to use them, we ask ourselves these questions: when, how, where, to what extent something is happening. Let's look at the sentence, the dog barks loudly. Okay, so barks is your verb. How does the dog bark? The dog barks loudly. So that's how we find our adverb. Now we also notice that loud is an adjective. And when we use it as an adverb, it gets the ly added on the end. Can you see that? So loud becomes loudly. The girl sings well. How does the girl sing? She sings well. So although we can look at an ordinary sentence like the dog barks, that kind of sounds pretty boring, doesn't it, on its own? Let me give you another one. If I say Jane sang, right? What did Jane do? Jane sang. But what if you want to know how good a singer Jane is? That's when you add an adverb. For example, if I said Jane sang beautifully or Jane sang terribly. Welcome away to, I see a few familiar names. If I said it in that way, then you would know whether she was a good singer or whether she wasn't a good singer, right? So it's important to know that this understanding of how well someone does is conveyed with an adverb, and there's different kinds, okay? We went through them earlier before we started. There's manner, adverbs of place, adverbs of frequency, adverbs of duration, of time, and we're going to go through them all today. So I hope you got your pens and your pencils and your colors, and I hope you're going to take some notes. All right. Let's do this. Right, let's look at adverbs of manner. Now this tells us the way an action is done, the way you do something, and answers the question as well, why or how. Okay, so let's look at an example. They run happily. So how do they run? They run happily. Now if I said they run, that doesn't tell me very much and it's very boring. Okay, and in this case, we add happily, and happy we know is an adjective, right? So now we have used an adjective, we've added ly, and we've made it into an adverb, and we've put it next to our verb to make him sound much more interesting. Okay, so in this way, it modifies the verb. Okie dokie. So if I had to say they happily ran, or they ran happily, they would both be correct. Which either way, you just listen to the one which obviously sounds a little bit better when you say it. Right, place, that's the next one. Now this one is telling us where something is, the location. So it answers where. For example, he is at home. Can you say he is at? Or we are? He went? Not really. It kind of sounds incomplete, doesn't it? Sounds like, I don't know where he really is. I don't know where we really are. And I don't know where he went. So in order to know, we need to add an adverb so that we have a better idea of where an action is happening. Okay. So let's have a look here. We have adverbs of time. All right, and I've got a few examples at the top there for you. I got now, yesterday, tomorrow, early, before, lately. Okay, and they are all adverbs of time. They're telling us when something happened. For example, they are having dinner. When? When are they having dinner? They are having dinner now. Okay, so do you see how well it changes a sentence? And that's referring to time now. So we're slowly getting all our ducks in a row here. We know it's for place. We know it's for when, for time. And we also know how it can be used to make an verb sound much more interesting. All right. Yeah, we have frequency. Now, this is where we start getting a little bit more into it because it's easy to know our whens and hows, but when you say like to what extent, then it gets a bit more, it can get a bit more confusing. Okay, so for example, if I was saying quickly and peacefully and loudly, just like that, okay? It's also indicating how something happens. But now we're getting to frequency, which is a bit more, it's not that always that easy to find. So you ask yourself the question, how often? And the questions are so handy because they really, really help you, direct you to where you should be looking. Okay, so how often? I will never do that. How often will you do that? I will never do that. We've got a few examples at the top as well. And please take note because we do have an exercise at the end of this lesson, okay? I know that I can't make language as exciting as other subjects sometimes, but I do hope that you're still with me and that you're able to follow. Okay, so we often meet and chat. So we meet and chat. If I just said we meet and chat, that doesn't tell me when or how or give me any detail. But if I say we often meet and chat, then I'm indicating the frequency of how often we do it. He is usually here on time. Instead of just saying he's here on time, we add a bit more like, how often is he here on time? So usually, I always brush my teeth after a meal. Instead of just saying I brush my teeth after a meal, let's add a bit of detail and say with more frequency, I always brush my teeth after a meal. Okay. So they really do help make a sentence interesting. and they do give you more detail. Let's look at this one now. This is duration. Sounds like a very big word, but don't worry, it's not that bad. Duration means the length of action, like how long you do something for or how long you're going to do something. Okay, so now we have examples at the bottom there. I've got he will forever be her little boy. So he will is your verb. Forever is describing how long he will be her little boy for. He will forever be her little boy. He works there temporarily. How long does he work there? Temporarily. We spoke briefly. How long did we speak? We spoke briefly. Okay, so I don't know if you notice the ly at the end. Okay, when you use an adjective as an adverb, that is, we often, let me put it this way. We know an adjective describes a noun, right? And an adverb describes a verb. That just kind of says it in the heading. Okay, but when we want to describe a verb with an adjective, but we need to use an adverb. Okay, so when we want to describe a verb, we add on ly at the end of an adjective to create an adverb. Okay, so I think you guys have been practicing that a lot, probably in the first term, but this is where we can clarify any confusion. Okay, an adverb uses an adjective sometimes to describe a verb in certain cases. And it usually will get an ly at the end of it. Probability. What are the likely chances of something going to happen? Certainly, maybe, probably, possibly, surely. You know, how likely? So let's look at our example. She will certainly forget about it. How likely is it that she will forget about it? Certainly. So it's certain that she will forget about it. He is probably in trouble. So how likely is he in trouble? Probably. Yeah. Do you see what I see? Do you see the ly? Yeah. Maybe we'll come after all. So how likely is it you'll come and visit? Maybe. Okay, so there's a probability. It's not definite, but it is possible. Okay, now we get to the degree of something. This is basically the extent of which something happens. All right, and I think that sometimes this is the easiest and also sometimes the kind of the hardest one to do at times. So these adverbs describe verbs. Okay, so for example, if I say almost crying, or I say extremely hot. So almost crying, the almost is describing a verb of crying. Extremely hot, then I've taken the word like extreme, which is an adjective, and I've added the ly, and now I have extremely hot. It's also adverbs like very quickly. Okay, so when you want to find the degree of something, just ask yourself, well, how much? For example, he is very concerned with you. How much is he concerned? To what degree is he concerned? Then we see he answered perfectly. To what degree did he answer? How well did he answer? He answered perfectly. There I've taken an adjective perfect and I've added ly to create an adverb to describe answered. You are totally right. How right are you? To what degree are you right? You're totally right. Okay, so this is, it seems like there's so much to remember, but to be honest, when you read a sentence and you know where to look, you look for your main verb and you'll find your adverb, it'll be describing the action. We can see how it's used. And the goal of this lesson is not to teach you necessarily what an adverb is, because you know what that is. It's to show you the many ways it is actually used and how to use it and how to recognize it. For example, we can use it as a comparator to compare actions, but it's all related to actions, okay? All of it. So it answers the question, especially the comparative is very similar to the superlative, but I'll show you the distinction now. The comparative compares more than one thing. Is it better than something else? Is it less than something else? Is it worse than something else? So which is better? And in the example, you can see I've got my subject and I'm comparing my subject to most people. So there is a comparison between two parts, two groups. So I'm comparing she to people. So she writes faster than most people. Have you noticed that the adverb has an ER on? Okay. So she writes, writes is your verb, faster is your comparing adverb. It describes how she writes compared to most people. Okay, so I've taken an adjective, fast, and I'm using it as an adverb to describe writes. The distinction between the two, remember, adjective describes a noun. Adverb describes a verb. So even though they look similar sometimes and can be used, look where they are, look what they are describing. Then you'll know which part of speech it is. Okay, so the superlative is also similar to the comparative. The only difference is it's not comparing more than one thing. It's explaining that this thing is the best, it is the worst, it is the least. All right, so to the highest degree of what it is. Okay, so best, most, least, worst, like your degrees of comparison. The superlative falls in basically what I would call the last column, so to speak, good, better, best. So it's kind of like that part of the comparisons. It's the highest degree, and it doesn't compare more than one thing. It just is. Okay, so they like each other best. It's not being compared to anything else. Okay, so they like each other best. They like, she thinks maths is the worst subject. All right, so you use it, you're not comparing two things or more than one thing. So now we've gone through all the adverbs, okay? And before we continue, just always keep in mind the difference between the two, because I know it can sound confusing. Okay, so when you find adverbs, say for example, I'm going to give you a sentence now, and I want you to listen carefully to see if you can find the adverbs. Now I'm going to read the sentence a few times so that you can maybe jot it down and just see if you can work it out. So this is the sentence. Yesterday, we very carefully planted pretty flowers outside. So yesterday, we very carefully planted pretty flowers outside. Now I'm going to give you a hint. There are 4 adverbs in that sentence. there are 4 adverbs in that sentence. I'm going to read it again. Yesterday, we very carefully planted pretty flowers outside. So yesterday, we very carefully planted pretty flowers outside. So, who can find the adverbs? Okay, now I can see some hands raised, but I can't actually, I don't know if you can type it in. I'm not too sure. But you can try, because I can see you guys are dying to answer. Look at that. Wow. I think everybody knows the answer. So remember, there's 4 adverbs. Okay. So why don't you ask yourself the question, is that someone ready to answer? I hear something. Okay. Yes?
Yesterday, very carefully and pretty.
Okay, so you said yesterday, very carefully and pretty.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so why did you choose yesterday?
Yesterday,
What is it telling you?
time.
It's telling you time. Very good. It's telling you time. So yesterday is the when, and what part would be the how?
Carefully.
Excellent. Carefully. Very good. And can you tell me where this happened?
In the garden.
Okay, so I'm going to read the
Outside,
sentence.
sorry.
At least you corrected yourself. Well done. Outside, you're right. It did. It happened outside. Okay, and why did you choose pretty as an adverb?
Ma'am, I made a mistake. It's an adjective.
That's it. Very good. I'm glad you noticed that. Because the thing is, I didn't have to tell you that it was wrong. I just had to ask you a question and you figured it out. So well done, sweetie. Thanks so much for your answer. Is there anybody else that would like to share? Yes. What do you have to share with me? What's your answer? Okay. So now I think if you look at your sentence, yesterday we very carefully planted pretty flowers outside. Okay, so yesterday is your time. How is how you planted the flowers. Outside is where you planted the flowers. Okay, but there's one more. There is one more, and it's actually describing another adverb. Now that's interesting, an adverb describing an adverb. See if you can find it. Maybe if you guys can, I don't know if the chat is open for your answers. Perhaps we can open the chat for you guys to type your answers. I think that would be much better. So we'll see if we'll get that going for you. Okay, rather type your answers for me. It's so much easier, and then everybody can participate. Okay, I thought it was very quiet out there. I haven't been seeing any chats. Come on. Making me feel alone up here. Right. So let's see what you have for me. Type it down. Okay, so grade 7's just, okay. So grade 7's always try and type it rather than chat or raise your hand, because then I have the opportunity to read them all, because that's what we normally do, remember? And it's much better because then I can go through the different things that we need to do. And if you can't type, just let us know. Right. So I know that some of you really want to tell me the answer to that. So let's see if you are right. And remember what you do if you're right. You give yourself a pat on the back. You go pat, pat. Remember. Okay. So now the missing adverb is very. Very. Yesterday, we very carefully planted pretty flowers outside. So very is an adverb and carefully is an adverb. But the very is actually describing another adverb. Isn't that cool? So it can describe verbs, it can describe adjectives, and it can describe adverbs. So it's very, very useful. For example, listen to this boring sentence. The dog wagged his tail and jumped. How on earth am I going to make that sound interesting? Because it's boring. The dog wagged his tail and jumped. Well, wagged is your verb. So how can I make that? What adverb can I add in there to make that very interesting? And then we have jumped, which is the next one, the next verb. So how can I make jump sound more interesting? Who can make this sentence interesting for me? And the nice thing is you can change your adverbs so that it can really be like a variety of, you can make it any kind of feeling you want to get across. So if a dog wags its tail, how's the dog feeling? What's the mood? Okay, I see a few hands raised, but I can't actually answer them that way. So please bear with us, guys. All right. Because I have to listen to all your voices is going to be very let's just pick somebody to help me make this sentence sound a bit more interesting. Yes, sweetie. Can you make this sentence sound a bit more interesting for me?
For excitedly wagged his tail and jumped.
Up here. No, Papa, you don't have to be here. Why?
The dog excitedly wagged his tail and jumped.
The dog.
How did he jump?
I'm going to sleep with the dog.
Proudly.
Proudly. Okay, that's very interesting. Do you see how it changes the whole sentence? The dog excitedly wagged his tail and jumped proudly. Oh, I like that. Well done. Would anybody else like to share? Because I'm getting some nice answers here. We can always change them. Who's got a nice one for me? Okay, we've gone all quiet now. Okay, so I love your idea there that you answered. Is there someone else? Yes? Okay. We're just getting used to the way it's working today. So, you want to hear my sentence? Yeah? Okay. The dog always wagged his tail and jumped excitedly. I also used excitedly because it really is a very cool word, just by the way. Okay, so see, you can use different adverbs to make a description of the action, and it'll still sound interesting and it will still sound exciting. How about we do this together? You want a pat on the back today? Yeah. Now, if you look at the top, you'll see I've put all the different adverbs in that box. Okay. And I've given a table. And if you look at the table, I have time, place, manner, and degree. So I have when, where, how, and to what extent something's done. Now, there are 5 adverbs per category. In other words, there are 5 adverbs per row, or column rather, per column. Let's put it that way. I would suggest that you first look at time. Look for all the words that relate to time and write those ones down first. Then you go to place, and that way you actually eliminate some of the words, and because it does get a bit difficult when it asks how and to what extent. You know, it can be either or sometimes for some of the words. So first do time, then do place, then we do manner, and then we do degree. I'm going to give you a minute to do that. So if I go quiet, don't worry, I'm still here. I know it takes time to write it down. Okay? So while you're doing that, when I've given you a minute or so, then I'm going to share my answers to you, and you can give yourself a pat on the back and a tick every time you get it right. Okay, so I'm giving you a minute, so I haven't gone anywhere. I'm still here to write that down and to organize them. So if I had to read through the words there, let me read through them. We've got yesterday, really, lazily, there, soon, over, carefully, daily, nervously, scarcely, hurriedly, forward, yeah, another yeah, very, everywhere, almost, tomorrow, hardly, before, and brilliantly. Now, do you see I have 2 words that say yeah? Okay, so don't worry too much if there's 2. Just write the 1 down. Okay, because we don't need to write it twice. All right. Don't worry, I'm going to go through it slowly because I know some of you are still busy writing. And you know that I have my email on the slide, so you guys can send me your work to have a look at, because I love seeing your work. All right. I'm going to start with time in the meantime. And let's see what I found. And see if you found the same. Yesterday, the very first one too. Tomorrow, okay. Daily, before, and soon. Did you all get that? Give yourself a pat pat. There we go. Okay, now place where something happened. Over, yeah. Where, Now, I think in the top, you see where the year is, there's 2 years. I do think one should be aware, don't you? Yeah, I think so too. Okay, there and everywhere. How about manner? Hurriedly, carefully, lazily, brilliantly, nervously. Oh, give yourself a pat on the back, because I know you got that. Now it's easy to find to what extent, because we aren't left with much choice. So we have almost, really, very, hardly, scarcely. And you could probably look at the first row and you go, yesterday, over, hurriedly, almost. You can actually make a sentence, can't you? Yesterday, over there, the dogs hurriedly ran away and almost fell into the lake. Isn't that cool? And how descriptive is that? It has changed your whole sentence from being boring, from the dog ran to telling me where, when, how, and to what degree. So now let's see if you can write 2 adverbs that can be used to describe each verb. Now, there are many verbs that I'm going to give you, but I don't expect you to do it now. You can do it after this lesson, because I've given you quite a lot to practice with. So we have laugh and talk and stand and sing. Now, just to recap quickly, an adverb is a word that describes a verb. So it describes an action. It also describes an adjective. So an adjective describes a noun, but it can also have a verb to describe it. Or it can describe another adverb. So we have laugh, talk, stand, and sing. And it tells us how we do something, when we do something, where we do something, and how often. So if you can find 2 adverbs to describe laugh, how do we laugh? When do we laugh? Where did we laugh? How often do we laugh? How do we talk? Where do we talk? When do we talk? How often do we talk? See how easy it is? Then with the next few words, we've got swim and eat and read and work, write and walk and jump and move, run and speak and listen and drive. So these are all the verbs, our action words. So you can jot them down, and after this lesson, see if you can think of 2 adverbs to describe them, to make them sound really, really interesting. Another thing to do, I can't go back. Another good idea to do is to get and look over some of the adverbs we did today and build your own sentences. Because when you write and make up your own sentence, then you get to use it and you get to learn and understand it much better. So you can take anything boring and make it into an interesting sentence. Okay, so let me pick one. Just let me see if I can just pick one. How about walk? How do we walk? Okay, well, it depends who we're talking about. If I talk about an elderly gentleman, I can say he walked slowly. I can say he walked carefully. All right. What else can we say for walk? Where did he walk? We went for a walk. We went for a quick walk. We went for a long walk. So that's also telling me to what degree we went for a walk. Okay. And I'm sure you guys are just full of ideas. I can see it. I can see your brains ticking. I can feel it from here. So please see what you can do with that activity, and you can email it to me. I would really, really, really love to see it. And tomorrow, and give yourself a pat on the back. Yes, pat, pat on the back. Okay. Tomorrow we're going to do a poem, and it's going to be really, really cool. I know it doesn't sound really, really cool, but it's going to be really, really cool. Okay. And we're going to have a lot of fun. And we're going to talk about the different images and features and the mood and how to plan and how to do our own poem eventually. So it's going to be a really good lesson. And I do hope you'll join me, because I really miss you guys and I look forward to seeing you every time. These are our links on social media you can follow. And remember that when you get the slide, or if you get an opportunity to rewatch the video, if you go to the front, in the front of our video, my email address is there. So you can send me your work. I've had some really cool work from, like I had some awesome stories from that story day we did and everything. So if you want to share your work with me and you want to show me what you know, and if you learned what you learned today, because I can't hear everybody and I can't know everybody. So please, 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 let's do this activity and show me the money. I'm joking. Show me your adverbs. Okay. I'm going to love and leave you guys. Give yourself a pat on the back. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Have a great afternoon. Bye now.